Yeah, Garmil Magus, Cahirlock, and Minister Butler, you're very welcome to the House here to speak with us today on child and adolescent mental health services, otherwise known as CAMHS. As a member of the Oireachtas Subcommittee on Mental Health, and here with my colleagues and many colleagues in the Chamber that have spoken here this evening, we have seen the impact of COVID-19 over the last 2 years. Like, it's been shocking. We've heard from our experts, we've heard from psychiatrists, we've had communities coming in and speaking to us. Minister, I know that you're very aware of this. I know that you've taken to this brief with a commitment and with clear goals that you wish to achieve. But it's just shocking, in particular this case, I suppose, in South Kerry, with the CAMHS in South Kerry. And I know that you've put reports in place and that there's recommendations there that you're looking to implement. But it does come down to a clear issue to me here in terms of recruitment oversight, recruitment protocols, oversight and governance, as you've mentioned yourself. One of the clear things you pointed to is that we need a national director for mental health. One of the things I will be asking you here is perhaps can we have a timeline on what that will look like? Directly afterwards, I did speak with our Community Healthcare West, so CHO2 for Galway, Roscommon and Mayo. I spoke with some of the team there, and they were in shock and they were so disheartened. They have struggled so much because they're dealing with such an outburst and mental health crisis over the last 2 years. Everyone in our healthcare is at burnout, breakdown point. They struggle sometimes to continue, and we're seeing so many people moving away from a healthcare minister. And this is another concern I have. How do we retain the excellent people we do have in our healthcare services, particularly around mental health? Because burnout is a huge issue. And our GPs, in a lot of cases, are the very much ones at the very front line. Minister, I would very much welcome your support, and perhaps with Minister Donnelly as well, particularly around Westdock, in the region that we're in, about having 24/7 support, because an awful lot of the GPs around the Banmaslow area, East Galway area, they don't have access to Westdock. So in other words, a lot of these GPs are working night shifts and just don't have the wherewithal. And just burnout is a huge issue for me. And I think just GPs are the front line. They do get to have families coming in, knocking on the doors. So I suppose I would ask for your support around access to Westdock, and that could be considered around the budget. Minister, just the other areas that I just want to note is that the helpline number that you've mentioned, and that was opened up last year. I want to acknowledge that. 1-800-742-800, open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m, just to confirm that that's still active at the moment. But that, I believe, was set up last year for these families. Just to highlight, and for the record, what our Community Healthcare West services do, and community healthcare organisations around the country. These are specialist mental health services, including, and this is the range of activities, acute inpatient services, day hospitals, outpatient clinics, community-based mental health teams, CAMHS, general adult and psychiatry of later life services, mental health and intellectual disability, community residential and continuing care residential services, and subspecialties including rehabilitation and recovery, eating disorders, liaison psychiatry and perinatal mental health. That is an incredible breadth of expertise and activities that are being done by our community healthcare organisations. And yet they are in our primary care setting. And I suppose, as you'd be aware, Minister, I always speak about technology and how we're going to use technology to connect with our hospitals. But our primary care areas are left out in the wilderness because we still don't have an electronic patient record to connect people's healthcare when they do end up in an acute setting, and maybe what they've been doing in terms of their GPs and then perhaps within the day hospitals within different regions. So technology is crucial, and the investment I know that has been invested into e-health within the Department of Health, this has to benefit mental health as well, Minister. This has to come to your department. This has to, we have to make a difference with this. And it is to do with, early intervention. Can we look at more virtual consults? And as Senator Murphy has spoken about in Castlerea, in the wonderful CAMHS unit that's been set up, this is absolutely fantastic. It's going to, change. It's a change maker. But we need more investment in that. And we need it to be seen that early intervention is something positive, that if we can do that in a virtual way, it can be triaged. If further intervention is needed at a very senior, serious level, that would happen as soon as possible. I suppose, Minister, if I might just mention as well that what I have just noticed, and I'm sure all of my colleagues too, the last number of months, just suicide, I suppose, loss of life is rampant. It is something that's very shocking and scary. It devastates families' lives. It is happening in our urban settings, but particularly in our rural settings, and I know that this is something that's happening in a lot of our towns. There's been incidences in schools, in secondary schools. you know, it's heartbreaking for those families, and it's hard to know what to do because it's too late, you know. It's too late when that happens and a family's life is destroyed forever in some ways. But what can we do now? And I suppose, Minister, how can we engage, as Senator Carrigy was saying here, and I'm sure the colleagues, how do we engage with schools at an earlier level, earlier stage? How do we, you know, stop this out? Through the Education Committee, sure, bullying, and 1 in 3 that are impacted by bullying. How do we change that culture and that attitude? Minister, I suppose the key questions from me are, I suppose, just one, progress on the recruitment of the National Director for Mental Health. What is the timeline for that? The technology, we have online counselling supports such as mymind.org, and for anyone listening, the 24/7 anonymous text line number 50808. But Minister, would you have anything else to comment on in terms of investment in the technology within your department? Of course, 1.149 billion, Minister, for mental health, which is wonderful investment, and I know an increase in previous years. But again, the recruitment, and particularly how we're supporting our community mental health teams. And Minister, can I ask your opinion on access to acute 24/7 psychiatric, perhaps A&P, advanced nurse specialists, or CNS, clinical nurse specialists, for all of our acute hospitals who do not have psychiatric departments, that they would have access to a healthcare expert within the psychiatric area that could be at a clinical nurse specialist level. And thank you, Chair.